Another eerie story. And don't forget to follow and like so I can bring you all the history, mystery, conspiracy, and everything in between. This one is particularly eerie and longer, so buckle in. We live in a rural community in the Navajo reservation. My aunt and her two brothers were home alone while my grandparents left for the evening to attend a chapter meeting. They were in the house like many other from the reservation. They didn't have electricity. It had been dark outside for about an hour and my aunt and uncles were getting ready for bed. Whatever it was opened the truck and began to dig through the personal items that my family had left in their vehicle. My aunt and uncles were frightened by the sight and knew that they should be taking action. They took out the rifle and all steadied themselves up and held it. They flung the door open, aimed the gun right at the dark figure. The figure turned and started to walk right towards them, totally unfazed by the weapon. My uncle pulled the trigger, but nothing happened. The figure drew closer and my aunt began to smell something like a rotting corpse. It was so strong it made her gag. My uncle continued to pull the trigger with no luck, and the figure came closer and closer. Off in the distance, headlights were coming up the road. My grandparents were returning. The figure looked toward the lights and started to move away and tucked itself behind a tree near the house. My oldest uncle ran toward the tree with the gun. My grandfather got out of the car and uncle pointed to the tree. The thing was poking out its head to observe what was going on. My grandfather ran into the house and over to the stove and grabbed a handful of ashes and rubbed it all over the gun and placed the ash-covered bullet into the chamber. Walked over out onto the front porch and fired towards the tree. Whatever that thing was didn't expect the gun to go off. The gunshot echoed and the dark figure began running. My grandma chased my aunt inside and my uncles, and my grandfather went after it. There weren't many roads or paths, so as my grandfather and uncles chased the figure, the truck was bouncing and the headlights were not fixed on one particular spot. My uncle swears that even the headlights would hit the figure and he saw a woman. Not only that, whoever it was running was on all fours like a bear. Grandfather eventually stopped the truck and as they neared the ditch that drops off 20 feet. He got out and began to yell in Navajo. My uncle says that he was yelling about a local woman. He yelled that he wasn't scared and that he knew it was her and to leave his family alone. A few days later, there were news that the woman that my grandfather was yelling about had passed. I've always been told that if you know who a skinwalker is, say their name and it will kill them. What are your creepy stories about skinwalkers?